Again, this morning we have a special guest speaker. Again, thankfully, one of our own, Mr. Tim Jones.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The reading today is from Psalm 31, verses 23 and 24. O love the Lord, all ye his saints, for the Lord preserveth the faithful, and plentifully rewardeth the proud doer. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart, all ye that hope in the Lord. Here ends this reading. All Saints Day. It's a little bit intimidating, I think, to speak to that. Of course, when I first hear the words All Saints Day, I think about saints with a capital S. St. Mary, St. Paul, St. Peter, all this stuff about people who are amazing people. Something that I think people that I know and myself could never accomplish. You look at the Catholic definition of saint, and there needs to be miracles and things like that to be a saint. I think that's too intimidating. I think rather about saints with a small s. I certainly enjoy some of the hymns we did this morning. And if you'll notice, even though the titles are capitalized, the words are all small s, saints. Certainly those of us who have passed on we view as saints, they have reached their reward in heaven. Of course, this term is often used about people who bear a great burden and who do so with grace and love. I remember a man in my church where I grew up who had lost more than one spouse in his lifetime, and yet he still pushed forward. I recall my father talking about him and that he had the patience of Job. Since I was a child, this was more of a story about a much older person, and not necessarily something that I identified with, yet the story still remains with me. Many times we view our own parents as saints, although we also see their feet of clay. My parents were always there for me, even when they were disciplining me. And as I looked and I wrote that word disciplining, funny how it has the same root as disciple. And maybe sometimes we need a little disciplining for us to be those disciples. For those with good family relationships, certainly our parents are one of the easier ones that we can come up with. I don't want to say that those relationships are not important and critical to our development. Rather, I want to talk about the impact of those small s saints around us. They may not even know when they are being saints, but rather become them in the lives of others. For God works through all of us, and many times we're not even aware of our impact on others. When I was in high school, we had a very large youth group, and we always had some young adults who were then sponsors of the group, kind of keep us on track, sometimes kind of a chaperone, some just being someone that we can bounce some ideas off of, because most of the planning was actually done by the high school students themselves. One of them was, he was a lawyer, and he and his wife were doing that while I was in high school when they were being counselors. One day, over the dinner table, my father had told me, well, you know he's a doctor. And we kind of funny. He says, well, you know that JD means Juris Doctor, or Doctor of Jurisprudence. So the next time I saw him at church, I went up to him and said, hey, Doc, he gave me a funny look. And then I explained the story. And another one of the youth was there and overheard it. And he did the same take, but suddenly he had the nickname of Doc, even though he was not a doctor, as one would call him. We then related to him on a level, yes, he could relate with us, but also have that adult figure in our lives. It kind of grew with him. He was also on the softball team, and later was the coach of the softball team. And so, just a big kid who we all identified with. And in his actions, I think we all learned how to better live our lives. As I was in college, and I had finished a couple of years, my parents were moving on to a new church. And so now I was kind of stuck in the middle between what do I do in terms of work during the summer to earn some money to go to school. My school ended at the beginning of May. They were moving in the middle of June. Do I get a job in the old community and then find a place to live? Or vice versa, go find a job that need to find a place to live before they moved into the new parsonage. Well, as I had discussed that with my father, he then passed that on to the junior pastor, two ministers at the church. And this pastor was probably in his mid-20s, maybe late 20s. Said, sure, I've got a parsonage with several extra bedrooms. He can stay with me during this 6 weeks or approximately the time that passed there. And so I had a chance to live with he and his wife and see them as a different role model in their actions on a day-to-day basis. And my view of what I could be as an adult, or what was the right behavior to have as an adult. Because certainly through high school and college there are always a lot of influences by our peers and things that give us kind of a different direction sometimes. So those were people that, to an extent, I saw them as being saints, the way they lived their lives on a consistent basis. At times we play that role for others, and we may not know that we have touched their lives. But our day-to-day lives are noticed by others. Our character and actions are observed by others. Didn't kind of want to use the word judge, but okay, maybe they are judging us for how we interact with people. Sometimes that is helping someone in need. Sometimes that is having an in-depth discussion of ethical issues, or just having a talk about something private that someone is confiding in us or we are confiding in others. As it turns out, that same counselor, Doc, he ended up with MS. And his wife was very much a saint, I think, because she dedicated her life to taking care of him. Even when he was bedridden, she kept him at home. He was a very big guy, so it was a very big challenge for her to get him bathed and all the things that you need to do on a day-to-day basis. But she had a commitment to him, to her word to God, in sickness and in health.